good morning everybody, and good afternoon here in London, and welcome to another live stream with the Mohawk Forex scalping team. And we're back after had a bit of a break, a bit of a family break, visiting some friends and family back in my home, and now we're back at it, and we're continuing with our small account challenge, proving to everyone you can true scalp small account. And obviously we're focusing still on gold at the moment because our account is still under $100, so we're still trading all the news events. And today is an action-packed one. About 9 minutes time we've got the retail sales, and we've got the export import news, and then just before the open we've got some industrial production news. And then after the open, we'll trade the open. We've got one of our favorites, which is the NAHB housing market index, which works really well. And then finally we'll switch to our bigger account and trade the crude oil and the gas, which has been doing really well for us at the moment. Obviously both these commodities are in the news with what is going on in Europe and OPEC, Russia, etc. And then obviously later on, for those of you who want to true scalp, you can scalp the FOMC minutes live, which is 7 PM UK time. So plenty of scalping to be done, and obviously we're going to be looking at trying to 5 to 10% our live account. My live account is with IC Markets. Our live accounts are, and starting, obviously we've already doubled our account anyway this week or so, so I've got no positions open, focus, so I don't use any of this for analysis. I just click the buy and sell. I usually do it on my phone, sticking still with 0.01. As you can see, that gives me a commission of 4 each way and a margin of only $2.74, about $4. This is the one to trade with a small account. Got plenty of margin available. That'll let me have 6 positions if I want to, if I do get something wrong and need to dig myself out of a hole, first trade something, which is what you've always got to keep in mind. Never over leverage, so you can't squeeze an extra trade in to counteract any losses. You just need that little bit of headroom. Leverage is 1 to 500. I recommend a minimum of 1 to 200, 1 to 500 when you're scalping on a small time frame. So that's the live account, and we're at $76.27, which is a good performance for a small account. Usually people will blow in 30 seconds. Obviously we try not to. We could blow it, and if we do, we go again. This is all live practice, but at the moment we're doing really well using our Axe trading system, which you get access to once you join the group at mohawkforex.com. has team help mentoring you along the way. We'll just have a listing on Bloomberg. We have that in the background. Going on. Fed minutes, as it said. So that's 2 PM Eastern Standard Time, 7 PM London GMT. Again, good one to scalp with gold or US 30. You really want to get in and out. So we're going to be looking at trading this retail sales news, high impact news. And remember, as we're with gold and it's pre-market, we're going to look at trading gold in the direction of the news. If the news is good, we'll buy gold. News is bad, we'll sell gold, and then we'll look to catch the reverse on the open or just before. So same strategy as always. We don't deviate from our strategy. That's what you've got to do. All that changes is the levels at which we get in, out, and out at our Axe trading system. I'll put it in grid. Yeah, and our RSIs at the moment, as you can see, there's a nice buy going on gold. It's into our neutral resistance, our daily pivot zone, which is always the dangerous part. This is where whether we're trading comes bullish or bearish once it breaks the zone. So it's a danger area to keep an eye on. And we've got a trend line break as well. So, yeah, we've got Justin and Alex have joined us today. Alex is in California and Justin's in Texas. It's good to have the guys.
Good morning, everyone.
join in while I have my coffee, but this should be a good stream.
It's always a good stream.
When there's plenty of news, like I say, we're just looking at the bigger picture on gold. Obviously, we expect gold. It's been really high. It's just we were just discussing before we came on air. Gold hitting a high, getting up there to the 1870, 1880 kind of range again, and dropping back down again. And primarily, this is this big W pattern here is formed out of the news. Obviously, still deciding whether Russia are actually pulling back from the border in Ukraine or whether it's just a talk. Obviously, if the news becomes good, traditionally gold will sell off. As things get worse, people invest in gold. So, there's no great secret. That's the way it's always been held as a safe commodity.
John, I mean, again, it's February, which I can't believe it feels like May or June as we go to retail sales in 6 minutes. But John, what's so important?
So they're mentioning it, retail sales in 6 minutes.
It's all starting way earlier than anybody.
Or 5 minutes yet. A little bit behind on the stream on the left. But like I said, we're going to go 0.01. Probably if I get to $100, I might up it to 0.02. That's what Justin does. You can go up a lot size because the idea is to try and do that 5 to 10% if you want to compound on a daily basis, and use it as a bit of a discipline so that you don't overtrade yourself. If you just want to aim for that target, get it, that's it. If you do it in 2 trades, goodbye. If you get in 20 trades, goodbye. It doesn't matter. Stick to some kind of daily goal, and that's what we're trying to do. 5 to 10%. So I'm looking for anywhere from $3.50 to about $7. That would be good, and I'd be surprised if I don't achieve it because there's a lot of news.
That it can be very valuable.
We'll get Mike McKee to break that down for us in just a moment. Let me whip through the price action. This is how the stage is set. 5 minutes out from retail sales in America. Futures come in a couple of basis points, couple of tenths of 1%, down 8 points on the S&P.
Gold is in a range. It's been in a range for a little bit.
Down 26. We're down 0.2 of 1%. In the bond market, yields are in a single basis points to 2.0329%.
Trap between these two levels.
By 1.2%.
Traded this, could have traded this, traded the pullback, and traded this, all nice and easy, all off the RSI. Head entries 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. There's 10 trades easy there.
Month on month, the headline number, we're looking for 2%. That's your median estimate. The previous read, negative 1.9. The numbers just around a corner.
Retail sales, we're looking for 2%. So this is a big improvement. So looking for an upside. So we will look to buy gold, where traditionally we would take a drop on it. So we want all these results to go the same way ideally. Got and the retail sales will override the import-export prices. But again, if all these news results, the majority of the same direction, that helps momentum, whatever you're trading. It could be US 30, it could be the pound against the dollar, USD, JPY, or gold, silver. With our small account, we stick with gold. Watch the countdown. We'll just have a look at the chart on there. You can see DAX has pulled back. Let's see, stopped. US indexes are all up. We're expecting the good news. It's kind of all priced in already. So for us, obviously, if this is worse than expected, we will sell. This is the main one. Retail sales month on month. 2%, and year on year, look, it's going to be down obviously year on year, 16.9 to 15. It could still be better. January's aircraft minus 1.92%. It's a big jump. It says there. Here's the countdown. We've got it to go. Pushing, trying to break that neutral support. See, I told you could have gone for a little cheeky buy and then pulled back. See, here's the news lined up. Trading view. Sure. Hold. Yeah, like it did last time I was on, where I traded the wrong thing.
Yeah, whenever you hit DAX.
Yeah, and that was me not waking up You know, gold's ranging around. And let's see if the bottom corner comes out with the right result, because remember they've been a little bit slow. Forex Factory as the backup. See here. Call retail. Stick with my FX book. Go. See what result we get. Moving on a bit.
Access the financial world.
Spiking down. Back up again.
Hear from leading economists, policymakers, and industry experts via live and on-demand webinars. Only from
Because look, we're waiting for.
start exploring to
Still
see
no
what's
piece yet,
moving
look.
the markets. Visit Bloomberg.com webinars.
As a company grows,
So better than expected, 3.3. So that is a good one. Get a couple of buys in, see where we go. Let's see if it's going to spike up. Wait for the other results as well. Brilliant. In and out. That's 2 buys. What did I get? Yay, $1.42 already. There you go, $1.42. In and out. Year on year, we expect it to be down. It's this one, the month on month was the big one. And go. Let's have a look and see what happens now. But we're expecting this to push up.
The main data point of the morning, just seconds away. Retail
Got a
sales
crap entry on that one.
to break that down for you. Futures went down
Let it
0.2%
play out.
on the S&P and on the Nasdaq. Yields in a basis point on 10s. The data drops. Here's Mike McKee.
All right, John, here are the numbers. Retail sales, a strong advance in January, a big rebound from what we saw
Look
in
at
the
that push up
month
now.
of December, up
Right.
3.8% on
Go.
a headline basis.
Gonna
It
bounce
was
There we go.
down 1.9%.
I'll
in
take my $1.50.
X autos
Thank
and
you, sir.
gas up 3.8%.
So yeah, I got $1.42 on that.
And that retail
Yeah, I
control
got
rate you mentioned,
$1.52.
which is
You can
what
see,
is the
yeah,
closest thing
$1.52.
to
Beautiful.
GDP.
42.
So
There you go.
economists watch this. That
I
is
still got
up
a sell
4.8%.
swinging because I know we're coming back
It was
down.
down
Yes, there'll be a
3.1%
pullback.
in the
Yeah.
prior month. So it looks
Gonna
like
bounce off this level here. Look, watch neutral.
There's been a sort of story out there that with the fall off in government payments,
Still not released the
that we would
results yet.
stop
That's a-
spending. But it looks like we are still spending some money, and that retail control is interesting because
There we go, all good, all good, and import prices as well. So
I'll let you check the
we're going to
markets
get
and
another
see what
buy on
else
here
moves
first.
this time.
Futures stay lower, Mike.
There
We're
we
down
go.
0.2% on the S&P and on the Nasdaq too by 1/4%. What did
Okay.
turn higher off the back of this were just Treasury yields. They were down about a basis point on 10s, now unchanged on a 10-year at 2.04%.
That push
We
up,
turn a
push
basis
down.
point higher on a 2-year yield to about
Go.
159. Seemingly,
The
none of
figures
these things
posted on the
are
retail
sort of
sales and
responding
exports.
based on the scheduled
Yeah.
data. Stopping them from hiking anytime soon, Tom. That is a really nice
Right.
upside surprise.
At least they
on
posted
US
on
retail
mine.
Let's
sales.
detail this into what we hear from Fed speakers. And to me, the most amazing comment from Bullard was Steve Leisman yesterday and was Steve Matthews.
I think we're going to bounce off of the RSI average line. It's starting to curl up.
Brilliant. I got another win there. I got another 2. What did I get there? I'm up to $1.75. Steamed in there. There you go. Look again. You can see 4 trades. Just in and out. 4 buys there.
Well, to
Nice little $1.75 start session. Happy with that. Which is $78 on the account. US 30, look, as you can see, dipped and then pushed up. Good news, you see. There's your drop. This is what you would have traded. You'd have gone the reverse. Our system there.
Which is a nice
You
rebound.
would have done. Trade
What
that.
we had seen, and it does suggest
And then the
that maybe
pullback.
cars are getting out there. Furniture and home furnishing stores now. Housing has been huge, and a 7.2% increase.
That was
in
a
month,
nice,
to January
nice drop.
is significant.
That news
I
event. Look at
would
that.
say.
Could have
Building
got
materials and garment
224
stores,
pips
4.1%.
on US 30.
So again, housing and construction doing
So
really well.
nice.
Grocery stores up 1.2%.
Gold.
Here's a surprise. Gasoline stations down 1.3%. Now remember, these are calculated in dollars. And if you look at the price of gasoline in January, it went significantly higher. In December, it was lower, but it was down, at least in terms of retail gas prices, but the total number of dollars spent on gasoline down 1.3%.
Mike, how do you understand the idea that retail sales came in hotter than expected? People are still going out there. They're still spending. How do you pair that with the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey that's coming in at the weakest readings going back a decade or more?
Well, the easiest thing I could do would be to quote Alan Greenspan, who once said years ago when asked about the consumer confidence numbers, we watch what people do, not what they say. Remember, those numbers show.
But like I say, all these look, as you can see, everything bar one was green. So that's where you go the reverse and we take the buys. Strong result. Take the sell on US 30 initially and then wait for the pullbacks. What we were doing here. Look.
Retailers, the internet shopping up 14.5%.
Gold.
Now that could be gift cards. Everybody's giving gift cards these days, and those don't count as retail sales until they are spent, and a lot of people spend them in January. So we'll have to take this apart more, but there could be a reason for that.
So it's pushing up now. This is going to be a buy again because you can see it's forming.
Just wrap this up.
So here we go. Here's the turn up.
Price or volume? Which one is it?
This captures price, and so the 3.8%. Change in retail sales would also be something you'd have to adjust for inflation, but
let's have a look, see if it's going to push up. RSI 52.
Mike McKee, thank you. Lisa, I know that's a point you've been on top of.
Well, and actually, Peter
I'm going to check out that neutral resistance again.
If you strip out the inflationary
1854.81.
Revisions downward in the prior month in December, it doesn't look as hot as the headline might suggest, which might explain why you're not seeing an even bigger reaction in the bond market.
Just a bit flatter here, Tom. 30's down a basis point. 2-year yields up almost a basis point.
Just keep in mind, gold's been buying all morning. We're going to be stronger on the sales unless the news event's pushing it a different way.
Subtlety going on the Bloomberg terminal. Right now to interpret and drive forward, Simona Makata joins us, Chief Economist, State Street Global Advisors in Boston. Simona, thrilled to have you with us today. And my arch question out of the Bullard-McKee talk I just had is, does this kind of data assist you
just
in
get a few more cents on the table.
Inflation breaks? If we're at a high level of inflation, the game is the guesstimate of when it starts.
Another two. What did I get? Yay, $2.05 now. Yay, I got 10 and 12. There we go. So again, just on a little bounce up. There we go.
Boom! Hit take profit. I had a take profit of 1854.5, just shy of our neutral resistance zone. Took profit at $1.58. Beautiful.
I think that's how you gauge what the trend of this economy is. I don't think the retail sales data in specifically.
So we're nearly up to $3. Good. $78.34 on the account. I love it. We're getting there. Another $2 in the bank.
Yep, $2.82 over here.
Like I say, I'm waiting for.
We're supposed to form, right? And just I'm saying this because we've got other people listening and watching and following along. We're supposed to be forming a W leg right now, but you've got to take into account we've got a lot of news hitting. We're also sitting at a neutral resistance, which is about to turn into a neutral support because we're about to push through it. Now, these are a lot of things that you've got to sit and weigh out while you're looking at the charts. You know, what do we have going on? What are we anticipating? There's always two plans. You know, we can sit back and we can form a hypothesis of, okay, if it's gonna go this way, these are gonna be my actions as a trader. If it goes the other way, I've got to be prepared for that too. And you execute based on what you see happening at that time, and you pick one of those two plans. Or you pick number 3, you just don't trade it.
And you can see here, look, I've set my line across the RSI again to know that if we break this 57, where it retested and bounced and retested and bounced here, and around this zone here, look, this is a good chance it's a full-on buy. Here we go, look at that. What a move. Just as I said it, there you go. Look now, will it retest off here or carry on up? This is it. This was your little manipulation, and then going the way of the news, and then we'll want this to drop once we get to the open. So, you know, See if RSI is going to push it on here. That's going to be quite good. Going to test the minor resistance here.
Immediately, what you can do, you can draw down those accumulated savings and still finance consumption.
Size 61, the no man's zone at the moment. Wait for it to pull back again.
Eventually, there will be.
Would have gone back in and then back out again.
Apparent until the second half of the year, and let's not forget.
It just is right. Yeah, you got to look at the bigger picture. You can see it's a nice W pattern.
There's still a lot of pent-up demand in parts of, of the spectrum, and that will still help.
It's stretched out, but
this is the tricky part, trying to.
And here's the thing, I'm going to post something to the group. Let me get all this other garbage off of here. I was, as a matter of fact, I was explaining this to Alex yesterday. It's the same thing that you and I talk about, Roy. Whenever you get your RSI forms areas of support and resistance, just like your price chart does. So we draw a line and we wait, like, okay, we're not going to take any buys until RSI crosses above this point.
About the trajectory of this particular cycle.
And we did that before.
It's been a tough journey.
Boom, right there. So, yeah, I think you just drew one on there. Yeah, same area.
I think what you are starting to see,
and it works well. It's a good safety.
Oh yeah, definitely. When you see where it's dinged off before, and now we're getting a little resistance inside of that candle. If we break, boom, we'll take it up to the first overbought zone.
Things having to do with expectations of wage increases. Just to give you an example, in the small business.
What did investing.com post? U.S. retail sales rise the most in 10 months, defying Omicron woes. Omicron's not even real anymore. They don't even talk about it.
This is all you see at the moment. So it's not even in the inflation data per se. It's in the leading indicators of inflation that you are starting to see some shift.
Yeah.
Got to leave it there, Simona. Thank you, Simona.
I really, just my personal preference. I don't want to take any buys right here because of the news event that we've got, and we've got a lot of traffic right up above. We've got another resistance zone, one of our blue zones. Looks like we may be getting a little resistance off our lower trend line.
TK, looking forward to a fantastic
maybe not.
About this economy
pushing.
This central bank.
No question, better than anything we did this morning. But beside that, John, these are people that have to adapt and adjust. What I find fascinating is we launch into March, everybody's going to have to recalibrate.
Trend line break and RSI going green.
Do you see how quickly they took that promo down when you said that? Tom, that's not true. Done loads of great stuff this morning. Lisa Peacham and Mike Collins.
And that's into the minor resistance in the blue zone.
I mean, yes, he was interrupted by the Macarena.
Top of our breakout zone too.
Your Treasury's got my attention because what you're seeing is an inverted yield curve between 20s and 30s. Basically, you're getting more
bounced
yield
off the trend line
Treasuries because they don't have the liquidity, they don't have the base of buyers.
Like I say, I took 6 buys.
One thing.
Sure.
The Federal Reserve
All
is going to
wins
stop
so
buying
far.
bonds for its assets.
And remember, we've got this industrial production news just before the open. Might do something, especially as production is from minus 0.1 to plus. So it could be a cheeky little buy again on gold because we're still pre-open. Year on year, obviously it's going to be down, they know that, but it's the month on month what people will be trading, and then we've got the housing news, so
the junkiest of junk.
That's why I'm not panicking, because there's plenty of opportunities to trade again.
Economic data in America, the CPI, a green light, the PPI, a brighter green light, retail sales, it's flashing green, the Fed's ready to go. The middle of March from New York, this is Bloomberg.
Keeping you up to date with news from around the world with the first word, I'm Ritika Gupta. Investors will get fresh clues today on the Fed's next moves. Minutes from last month's policy meeting will be released as speculation that the Fed may act more aggressively to get the highest inflation in 40 years under control. That could include a
pulling back off the top of the breakout zone in that minor resistance area.
Said that trade tools are needed to confront China. In a new report, the U.S. Trade Representative's office said that China's state-led model has harmed American companies and workers. It accused China of failing to keep promises to pursue market-orientated policies that it made to join the World Trade Organization. And the Swedish telecom equipment maker Ericsson may have made payments to the ISIS terror organization. CEO Borja Ekholm told a newspaper the money may have been used to gain access to certain transport routes in Iraq. Ericsson says it continues to, quote, invest significantly into an investigation into its Iraq-based operations. And Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon says the firm will always have an in-person office culture. Solomon calls the office especially valuable for the development of employees in their 20s. He says that Goldman had opened offices in cities across the US, but the firm won't create jobs that can be done from remote locations such as Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Stanford University edged out Harvard as the biggest fundraiser in the US. Stanford raised about $1.39 billion. It's about $10 million more than Harvard. They were the only two US
good.
schools
Oh,
over
US 30. Yeah, US 30
rising
pulling
stock
back
markets
now.
last
Look, so
year
there was the
have
sell,
fueled
there was the
donations globally,
manipulation, here was the sell off again,
And
and then
now
obviously we
Bloomberg
should
takes
get a
part
buy
more
on
than
this on the
2,700
open.
journalists and
If
analysts
that's what
in
you
more
can
than
trade.
120 countries. I'm
I'll
Rita
wait till you've got the
Gupta.
right account
This
size
is
to trade it.
Bloomberg.
But nice trend line as well to give it some nice support. That was a nice drop. Gold still wants to push back up, but I'd say we're extending now. This is where, you know, it's risky. CRSI's just dipped down, look, hit that level again. Now we can raise this up to that level, you see, because there you go, look, 65 and 65 here. Resistance. 5 pips to the downside, possibly. Or we just wait for the next event. Got to think, is it worth me trading this? Am I going to get anything from it? Is it going to reverse on me? 63 is looking good for a dip, look. Like just instead, we've got these zones, we've got our breakout zone, we've got our points of interest, we've got a blue heavy resistance zone and one above it. So this is our big zone that gold's going to struggle to break right now without another news event. Then we're up to the even heavier resistance zone here, which is the 1859 zone.
If they're not being employed to Ukraine,
And you can see the momentum has run out.
And does that risk further provoking Russia?
Well, there's two things going on.
Not saying it could still break.
The United States
now you just hang.
that we are going to put 8,500 troops that are part of the NATO response force on high alert. That means they'll be ready to deploy on a moment's notice should we need those forces.
Even on that,
it may build up a little steam.
Yep, and it could have gone reverse even on the news here. Look, the retail sales were better than expected. Gold took the traditional dip before pulling up. So we're just trading just the bigger move. You know, this you would hold because your stop loss, if you took the buy here like I did, my stop loss would have been below this heavy support zone anyway. You're not going to put it on the minor because you know you're going to get spiked out on news events. You're going to go to the heavy one. So this is where you're, if you're walking away from this trade, because I put 6 buys in. So that's when the news result came out, top there. Stop loss is going to be just below our support zone there. The target you decide to go for, you know. That would be the setup.
I don't know about you, but true scalpers very rarely walk away from a trade. But yes,
there's people who do that. People ask me where do you set your stop loss, and this is where you would, you know. You know, you'd just get stopped out at any other level because these are minor ones on a 3-minute time frame that just get smashed by news events, which is what we want. But you know, the heavy ones are harder. But this is where you would be, even if you were below that last candle. You'd be below this blue zone, whatever. You know what I mean? You'd be there or here.
Now we're building up momentum back to the top side.
It looks like it, yeah.
So we may break out to the top.
It goes to the top, then we can get an extra bonus trade, maybe.
Yep.
ESA wants to be a leading force in furthering humanity's mission into space.
Wick down. Is it going to fill that wick?
If we want to have a successful human
we just got a bull signal.
Yeah.
World in a different way.
Onto minor resistance.
The place where we are going to learn to do that is on the moon.
Can ESA help humanity take its next giant leap?
There's hitting the next level.
Good morning, everyone.
To recap the headlines.
You do not want to miss this story.
How are you thinking about those dynamics?
Got 10 minutes now until we get the 2 PM move, if there is one.
People all around
around the world are retooling. Here in America, do you think Ford Motor Company and General Motors, which have completely retooled and are retooling their factories to build electric, do you think they're
say we've got this
electric's not the future?
industrial production using 25 minutes, so this will be our next one.
John Kerry, the former
The production is on Forex Factory as well. You can see here, print out the month-on-month there, kind of medium impact one.
Secretary Kerry in Davos on climate, and I was.
But look at your RSI; it broke that level that we mapped out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, folks. It's Massachusetts. I still call.
That's when you know it's good to go.
The senator was informed legitimately on climate, whatever your
Broke our breakout zone now.
Of course, peer-to-peer conversation.
Against this, now that's support, becomes support.
As well. I was
Boom, hit take profit.
This guy did not mail it in on climate.
Well done.
Is that what you observed?
He knows this stuff cold. This is the job he wanted. Most people, when they finish being Secretary of State, never want to go back into government because any position will be less significant than the one they had. He's so interested in this subject. He came back, in effect, is a subordinate
That's
to
been a nice second leg
He's
W, you
but
see.
he's not as significant as a Secretary of State, who used to be his deputy. Tony Blinken used to be the deputy to John Kerry. Now, Tony Blinken's Secretary of State, and John Kerry is in the State Department,
RSI
not as
69.
significant a position as he once had. But he wanted to do this because he really cares about climate change.
David, because of news flow, we have other topics, but one more question this morning on John Kerry. He's big time frustrated over where we are right now.
We're back to
Headlines
68.
today, I think water
Right.
lease is going to rise 2 or 3 feet. Baltimore's Camden Yards is going to be flooded.
If you make a mistake and put the cells in, you see, there's a good chance they're going to get cleared and win on the open, you know, because we're going to be looking to take take the M
It's something we have to do something about.
back.
But the truth is, it's nothing we can do overnight that's going to change the situation. It's going to take years. That's why when we talk about standards, we're talking about things we can do by the year 2050. There's a goal by many people to be net zero in terms of emissions by 2050.
Up again,
but that's going to
68.
take some time to get there.
Lisa, the Secretary Blinken speaking with Joe over at MSNBC, no evidence of a Russia pullback.
Yeah, and I know that
See, there's
John
the
Kerry
industrial
did want to
production
talk about the climate
forecast
issues.
month on
He
month. We're
was,
looking
though,
for
a
this,
former
an
Secretary of
increase
State,
from
and Tony
minus
Blinken was his
0.1
disciple, which
to
leads us to really
plus
understand
0.4.
perhaps some of the framework
We'll hope
as
we'll
to
push
how they
gold
have
back up
grappled
again.
with the situation. David,
23 minutes.
to the degree that we've gotten some rhetoric out of Tony
RSI
Blinken
68.
really giving a threat that if this region
Ranging
of
around
Ukraine
at the
gets
moment,
recognized as
being
independent by
movement
Russia,
in the
it's a
pips.
game changer and necessitates a response. How do
Still
you
5
think
pips to the
about
top
that
side, there
in
you go.
terms of gaming out the potential for an escalation or de-escalation?
I think this is reminiscent of what George Herbert Walker Bush did in the Kuwait War. He got a coalition together, put together very effectively by Jim Baker, his Secretary of State.
1857.
And in the end, the Allies were so strong that there was no chance really for Saddam Hussein to prevail in Kuwait. Right now, the Allies are so united that I don't think there's any.
One thing about gold is we haven't traded these zones since early 2021, whenever we were up here. So we're reestablishing patterns from the past while we're in these zones. We've been traditionally trading between 1760 and 1800. Just recently, in early 2022, we've broke that resistance at 1800, and we've traded between 1800 and 1820, 1820 and 1840. Now we're trading between 1840 and 1880. So these are new market characteristics for a new economic climate. So you got to kind of feel this out as to how you're going to trade it.
The crisis had to allow Khrushchev to save face. What did we learn then that we can apply now?
Well, we did give him a way out because we actually.
That's like whenever someone asks me my, my consensus of the market, there's a lot that goes into that, or my consensus of a particular instrument. You know, there's 1,001 things that we have to talk about before I can tell you, okay, you know, I'm going to expect this or I'm going to expect this.
Trumpeted. We don't want to do that. What you really want to do is to say, look, we have an agreement now. It's good, and both sides won. That's what he needs to really do as President of the United States, and I think that's what Joe Biden is doing.
By the way, you just had David Rubenstein on there talking about the Russian pullback.
Yeah.
Geopolitical tensions in terms of how to prepare for possible sanctions, how to prepare for a shift.
And this will affect gold as well, and oil. Oil and gas will be the big ones
Oh,
that get
absolutely.
affected. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results on that one.
but you tend to be in a longer-term investor. But there's no doubt that firms like ours do have shorter-term investments, and we have publicly traded securities as well. There's no perfect way to do it, but any time you do a long-term investment or a short-term investment, you now increasingly look at geopolitical risks in the United States.
Good. We found
abroad.
resistance.
And this particular risk is one that people are taking a strong look at. Now, we recognize that it's likely that energy prices will go up.
Going to pump up more, or is it going to drop?
And the markets have reflected that. But energy prices should come down if, in fact, we can come up with a peaceful resolution.
A short drop.
The news flow today has been dramatic, and I do want to bring you this headline that the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Justice Department is pursuing a wide-ranging probe of short sellers, including with Carson Block, a prominent short seller who received a subpoena, had an FBI search warrant. From your perspective, David, with your legal prowess, what's your view on some of the regulatory crackdown that we're seeing right now from this administration?
I wouldn't use the word crackdown. I would say the chairman of the SEC, Gary Gensler, thinks there should be more disclosure of hedge fund fees and private equity fees, and no doubt there'll be comments about that, and something will move forward. But I think it's important that everybody who invests in these kind of funds does have very good information, and fees should be disclosed, and I don't think anybody's against that. The devil is in the details, but I think it can be worked out to everybody's satisfaction.
Let me bring it back to your conversation with Secretary Kerry.
I'll be glad whenever they get rid of this ESG.
Public service. Now he's dealing with something that appears from all intents intractable as well. What's the Kerry agenda to get something done in the coming quarters and years?
Well, John Kerry is somebody who's 78 years old. He's not somebody who is at the beginning of his career.
Saturn support trapped now between these two zones.
And work on this issue.
I get a little bit of
Because
fluctuation.
He cares about it, and
pop back down again.
Everybody wants to have a legacy when
That's
they're in
that.
public policy, and he thinks his legacy.
Well, that we got a 30, maybe a 34-minute range before. Well, we got news in 18 minutes, and then we've got the open in 34. So we'll make it a little range up until that news, and then we'll get a solid push.
Do you have meetings on that at Carlisle?
We have a large ESG
Reduction.
program, which means
A month is
environmental,
the
social, and governance. And so all of the companies we look at, as do other companies in our industry, we care
higher than expected figure is positive, lower is negative. We usually expect.
And so when we buy a company, we're very certain to make.
And remember, those are pertaining to the dollar, so it's the opposite on gold.
Going forward, we try to do things that will make the environmental practices much better than they were before.
It's going to be interesting. David Rubenstein, thank you so much. Of course,
Thank you.
Peer-to-peer conversations with John Kerry. Look for that tonight. Peer-to-peer conversations.
You can just see how it moves because it's closed. It's still pre-market, so usually gold might go the same way, but then it'll pull back. Just depends if it all goes. If the new, we want all this to be better than expected, so it's all green to give us a sell on the open. That would be the ideal scenario.
It looked very different.
If price gets up to here, you see this heavy resistance zone. This is where you can start loading the sales in the open. RSI look bounced beautifully. Look, bounced off that 60.
And particularly Maria Tadeo in Brussels. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh shit! Bounced off the little zone and shot back up.
We retest again.
Yep. I'm not interested in trading this until we get overbought conditions for a little bonus trade. I want to see what it's going to do right here. I'm waiting for it to start forming your center legs.
Yeah.
But we've also got news that could spike it the other way too.
You're right. Yeah, we could get a center leg forming on the sell.
Well, it looks like it's not done. It looks like it's not done with the last leg.
But yeah, they hit that heavy resistance.
Yep.
All this is your retail sales being against the news, or with the news, against the norm.
Soaring energy prices and a
I think I want to move to Puerto Rico.
that produce synthetic fertilizers are sending pig, cow, and horse manure prices soaring. Even human waste is in demand as farmers hunt for alternatives. Fertiliser helps increase crop yields.
You can see how much moisture is held into this. It's a lot of organic material into the compost, so it breaks down. The manure and the straw breaks down into a friable mix that can be mixed into your soil in the ground and for growing a whole range of different vegetables. Holds the nutrients in, holds the water in, and it really increases the kind of biodynamic profile of the soil.
The recent price spike could mean more farmers are organic for the long term.
They're protesting Puerto Rico as a tax haven for cryptocurrency investors.
RSI 70. Is it are we going to get another cheeky buy, or are we just going to get a pull? Hold and wait.
Need to catch up?
This is Bloomberg Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston.
We've got the information and insights. David, you just hit the
So here's the 2 p.m. Is there a 2 p.m. move? Let's have a look on. Look at Lewis 30. Look at that. You see? Retail sales better. There was your push up. There was your push down initially. And then going the way of the news and then pulling back. So if you put in a sell here, mistaking profit, all you had to do was hold, because where would your stop loss be? Above these zones. So if you go in with the reverse, which you should have done with news, so you go the reverse pre-market, you know, your stop loss would have been there. Would have been your risk. You know, you could have been anywhere down to or here or here. And that would have been the setup. No bullshit. That's what the system is telling us. You know, I'm not making it up and saying, well, my stop loss would be there, there'd have been a stop down loss. It wouldn't, because you'd look at that and go, well, there's an amount of zones here. To avoid any new spiking, that's what my stop loss has to be. I have to risk 65 pips to make 40 pips or 30 pips. It's never a big risk reward, because you lay it out how it's in front of you. You can't make the risk to reward up. It is what it is. I say, you know, so, you know, I could say, oh yeah, price is going to come down to here, and it has done. But we didn't know that. At least take 100 off the table, 10 pips first. You want to hold for longer. Maybe the breakout zone, maybe here. That would have been a realistic. And you see, it would have smashed it. Got 43 pips on that. That's how you can use the axe if you want to walk away. Just to say it's hard to when you trade this like this, but you want to be diving in it. But
the number one issue in the country is inflation.
The Fed is being dictated by inflation.
Are they intent on dealing with that?
As far as the Fed moving 7 times,
whether or not the Fed goes 50 in March,
they're only going to do it if the market allows them to.
Remember the dual mandates of the Fed.
Lower unemployment and lower inflation.
That's the wife and kids.
That dual mandate.
Investors are kind of more the side piece.
So what is the policy the Fed's trying to do here?
There are still questions.
They seem to want to find one that's going to make inflation come down, the stock market go up, and everybody's happy.
They have to regain.
Pulling back a little bit, as we said. That heavy resistance.
Unfortunately,
So,
they got to pick.
I got a cheeky sell in off that wick.
I'm going to see if I can too. Back watching.
CPI, let's go. PPI, let's move. Retail sales okay. How bright is that green light for the Federal Reserve?
Pretty bright at this point, given the fact that I think there was some concern, at least from me, that there might be a slowdown in growth in the first quarter because of you know, the Omicron variant, weaker retail sales, perhaps weaker consumer spending, weaker services sector, but that doesn't seem to be really being borne out in the data.
So heading back up.
The data, both manufacturing as well.
Like I said, the bigger pictures we're looking now. We've got a blue zone, you see. So if he's in a buy, you'd be wanting to watch out now. We're looking to form.
In the Omicron variant, so it's mostly green light for the Fed. The question really becomes
Centre M at some point. Push back up, retest that.
Points on a measured pace for the remainder of the year,
Or we could be seeing
switch to a much more aggressive stance and start raising rates by 50 basis points, either the March meeting or one of the subsequent meetings.
Bob Michael, you think this Fed has got some catching up to do?
Yeah, I think
push back up.
And I'll confess, I never liked the idea of a 50 basis point rate hike. We look back over the last 30 plus years, there have only been a couple times they did it. In 99, 2000, they raised rates 6 times into the dot-com bubble. The last one was 50. In 94 to 95, they raised rates.
What you can do, you can keep scalping the sales off the top of this, and then just taking the profit and getting in and out. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. You hold those short sells for a couple minutes.
Yes.
And then get out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you don't hold for a long period.
I was having that same conversation. Those are your more, if you're trying to scalp the little center legs, those are your more aggressive. You flash in, you get your profit, you get back out. You wait for your setup.
Might say, who cares if we're disappointed by it, Bob? What do you think the complications, the consequences will be?
Well, I think the consequences of not doing 50 are a steepening of the yield curve. I think that any thought that you could invest in risk on through credit or equities, that goes out the window because the market will lose confidence in the Fed, that they're too far behind the curve. And look, so far this year, the Fed has admitted they are way behind the curve. Inflation is much hotter than they thought. They have a lot of catching up to do. And that starts with the 50 basis point rate hike in March.
Wow, Matt Hornback, I'll use Bob Michael's words. Do you expect a knuckle sandwich next month?
I expect this year to give us ice cream sandwiches, John. And it's ultimately because, the markets are pricing in just over 40 basis points for March. And the equity market, of course, knows that. And the equity market has been okay, right?
Investors are waiting, so it could be good tonight. Could be good.
And we're dealing
watching Liverpool tonight. They're playing in Europe, but I might be tempted to scalp a little bit of the old Fed. I think we did last time, didn't we? We did a little bit of cheeky gold scalping, which was really pretty cool. While he was talking, what you got to do there is wait for a candle to start moving in one direction and jump in on it, get some green and get out. That's the way you do it. There's kind of no massive strategy on it. You just wait for a move. You don't trade in on a doji. You wait for a big breakout candle while the speech is on. You go in that direction, and you're edging that. It's going to be a continuation, and most of the time it is. And then you'll hit a key level, and it'll reverse while they're talking. We've seen it time and time again. That's the pattern.
Pretty good at first look.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here we go. Look, there's the.
And another blue zone form. Well, it's flashing.
In retail sales in the month of January.
You're in on the buy. Look on the extended. Very close.
Fix and grab one.
Headline basis for retail sales overall. The retail control group, which goes into GDP, basically up 4.8% after a 4% drop.
And now we're at that key zone, 1859.
A little earlier, but you had a 2% rise in import prices after they had fallen in December. So the inflation and strong growth theory is still alive. You can see that in the
beautiful second leg though, W, didn't we say?
Yep.
We've got 7-8 trades away on this, really good, getting in and out, and that's what you've got to do.
Measured in dollars.
See, it's got a double zone now, double zone. So even though that flashed in, you would have just waited to see if it sticks, because obviously you don't want to get trapped in a buy right at the top here. It's a key level. You don't. I know I like to get in on these ones, like here. Look, you could put in, it came in and got in again, but you're well away from a big level. But when you see it hit that 75 and you're right against a blue zone, it's dangerous. Of course it is, because you're buying right at the top.
This time we'll see what
we're looking for sales.
Then the all-important question, were they ready at that point to even consider a 50 basis point move? We'll also be looking for
details is going to dip down.
They might start reducing the balance sheet, but the inflation growth and Fed rate rise increase is the big topics for 2 o'clock.
Mike McKee, thank you, sir. Mike's right to mention what happened last time around.
Down,
the
look,
December
coming down.
Fed meeting. The NASDAQ was up on the day off the back of it. We had the minutes for the same meeting, largely repeating what the.
So we've got the news in 6 minutes. The industrial production month on month is what we're going to be looking at. Year on year we know is going to be down. It's this one we're looking at to see if there's an increase in industrial production month on month. Basic, you see, you haven't got to be a genius, to work these out. So this could be a key driver. Could be. Let's see. Obviously for us, we'll see if this is, if it's not as good. Could be a buy. If it's 0.3 and worse than expected, then we might see gold just drop off a little bit. In terms of the buy, it's going to be a decent result for it to break the level, but then it could be up to 1860. Could be.
Governors as well as
I'll just set an arrow up. Yeah,
that they're ready to raise rates by 50 basis points.
It's only a medium, but it should move something. It's so close to the open.
Hawkish, regional Fed presidents have said that they favor maybe 3 to 4 hikes for this year. I would say, with the exception of Bullard,
5 minutes.
The committee hasn't really committed to 50 basis points.
So for us, as scalpers and traders, we like it to be worse than expected. So we get a pullback rather than a break. It doesn't really matter because we know that the W will extend to here instead of here. If it is, good news. If it beats that 0.4, if it hits the 0.4, it should be a buy as well. And then obviously all this green will then reverse on us. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a 50 to 100 point reversal on the open. So this is going to be interesting to see.
From 3 hikes to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 in your view this year, can you price much more into the front end than is already priced?
Well, I think that's a really good point, and I think we're being very careful not to be too bearish here. As you know, for pretty much the last 12 to 18 months, we've always said the Fed has to get to a 2% Fed funds rate sooner than later, a 0 real Fed funds rate. The market has moved to our way of thinking. 150 basis points are priced in this year, 50 next year. Yeah, maybe 25 to 50 will be pulled into this year, and you'll get to 2% by the end of the year. But from where we've come to, from where we started,
4 minutes to go. Let's look at US 30. So US 30 is dropping down. Oh, if you're on US 30 now, look, this is where it's good to get in on the sell, because you've seen it wick down already once. You've got a break of a key level, so this is a sell. Be on a sell on this now, but I can't because I've got my small account. This is a perfect setup. That is as good as it gets in terms of trying to achieve something that will fill that wick and get yourself 10 pips there. Look, that's an easy one. I'm going to post that.
Conviction from where you were before without getting a real understanding of balance sheet reduction.
Absolutely. And I liken this to what happened to some of the previous Fed shocks, the taper tantrum being the most recent one. From May to June, there was a huge repricing across markets.
Just backing off on that level now, you see.
High yield went 100 wide.
Hanging around waiting. It's heavy resistance, you see. Heavy resistance. So ideally, we want this to drop. There we go. Come on.
But in the next 4 months,
well, the news to give it that same edge as well, the same way. 2 minutes to go.
So it is possible for the markets to digest, absorb.
And remember, there's a limit to how far gold will go in the same direction the news. Like if this was significantly way better, like 0.78, it could possibly the gold will just drop. It will go the reverse.
You can see, you can see 100 pip drop off.
You know, there's a tipping balance, so be prepared to go each way. That's what you got to do as a scalper. Be open, have your own analysis, have what you would like to do, continue our lovely pattern here. Also be prepared, like Justin says, to have that plan B to know which direction to go in. So RSI is dropping down, clipping 68. That's what we want to see. We want to see a nice, ideally for us, we want to see a nice drop now, form that M. We've got a beautiful M here, a nice W here.
Over the next couple of years, the bond market is just not pricing in enough positive risk premium to protect against the possibility.
See if we can get in and out on this. 1 minute to go.
Rate hike in March or at any subsequent meeting. So
make sure Forex Factory is loaded up with. Well, they're just focusing on this one here. Business inventory is later on its capacity utilization rate and industrial production.
Yields have turned a little bit lower as well. Tends down by 3 basis points to just north of 2%. Some headlines.
But like I say, for stocks, everyone's waiting for the Fed.
Yeah, John, of course, we are hearing from Secretary of State Anthony Blinken being interviewed, of course, here.
Yeah, FOMC minutes are going to make that stock market volatile tonight. And this evening for us. Afternoon.
RSI 66, look, bombing down.
We do have have, as you mentioned, John, some equities moving as well. When we take a look at earnings, now this was incredible when you get heads from Airbnb yesterday, beating estimates. I think the key headline, John, that really stood out to me.
Got a cheeky sell there, got another 28 cents there, just nipped in and out just before the news. So let's see if we get any more. Let's see what happens.
All right, 45 seconds. We're flashing.
Yeah, most got in and out on them two sells. Let's see if this will take me over the 5%. $3.50 is what I need to hit 5% for the day.
Organic revenue sales growth.
Let's see which way we're going to go.
3.8% of that is from price growth, right? Cost of the products that they're selling also rising big time as a percent of revenue, 67.8% now. Shopify is a little bit of a different story.
Import prices, it says here, better than expected. Look at that.
It did rise, and you are getting a beat on both the top and the
Industrial
bottom line.
production.
They are
Come on.
saying that retail sales
Go for it. 0.4.
continue to grow despite sort of the reopening as
10 seconds.
but they are seeing a little bit of a slowdown in the first quarter of 2022 relative to where we were a year ago.
Taylor, thank you. We got lucky this morning. You're with us for the whole hour.
I am. I
There we
don't
go.
know if you're lucky, but I'm
It's
here.
like a throwback, Taylor Riggs, to another time. Taylor Riggs, thank you.
Better
very
than
much. It's good to have
expected.
you with us through the hour.
1.4.
Bloomberg TV. Some
Let's
comments
see.
from Secretary Blinken on a US broadcaster, MSNBC, in the previous hour.
Massive.
There's what Russia says and what Russia does, and we haven't seen any pullback of its forces. Quote, so far, we
And
haven't seen it.
4.1,
Coming
so
up, the
better
US
as well.
refusing to give the all clear.
The United States is prepared.
We'll get it both way on here.
We are ready.
We get a buy, then a sell.
And we are
Look.
ready to respond
Let's see if it pushes up on here, then drops.
Which is still very much a possibility.
It's gonna drop. It looks like it's dropping first.
Waiting on the buy. Yeah, got a buy. That's it. I've got two buys there. I've got 16 and 19. Took me to $2.90. Now I'm going to wait for the sell. See, it's pushed up just off that. Yeah, that's how quick you've got to be. Now let's see if we're going to get. Look at the RSI. It's getting that key level. You see, that's why I got out. I took two quick buys on that. $2.90, but that was another 50 cents. I'll do 40 cents. Is it going to break this support, minor support? It's ranging on this because remember this is pre-market news. It's gone the way of the news for now. But that's good. I mean this means for sales. Look at that. You've got so much selling. Look at now because you've had all this. Post that into the group.
February to end of February because we expect that a peak time will come around that time, and then the government will shift toward the reinvigoration of consumer. That will help us. And we had seen the huge comeback of the business in December when the things were toward the normalization.
As you can see, it's pushed up. As I said, the buy look. There you go. It's gone reverse. Could have got another couple of buys there, but I've just held because I'm waiting because we've only got 10 minutes. Now we'll see if it just pushes down. I want it to hang around here, then drop on the open. That's the ideal scenario. This is just a little extra bonus because, like I say, it's only a medium impact, but both were way better. Because it's so higher, we should get the drop. The drop might start earlier. And then we've got the open, and then we've got the business inventories and our housing market index to trade, and then we'll finish with the crude oil. Good.
I think there's tremendous opportunity.
Gold now just pushing down. Look, trying to push down.
So far, we have not seen any de-escalation on the ground. On the contrary, it appears that Russia continues the military build-up. We are ready to sit down and discuss with them.
RSI again, look at that, respecting our level. 60, 64, 65, look.
Saying the following: units of the western and southern military districts that have completed their missions and will start moving back to their garrisons today. The Kremlin has also denied the claim that it's continuing a military build-up in the area. Joining us now is Bloomberg's Anne-Marie.
Who knows what's happening?
DC. Maria Tadeo out of Brussels at NATO's headquarters. Maria, what is the latest?
Yeah, I'm listening to Bloomberg too.
Well, Jonathan, I've been at NATO the whole morning because European defense ministers, are holding a meeting today. Of course, a lot of this in reaction to Russia. And what I hear at this point is that they do not see real proof of de-escalation. They continue to say that they want to independently verify the claims that Russia is making about pulling the troops back. They also say that this is not just troops. They need to pull back some of the weapons and the military equipment that could be left behind and put them again in a position to attack Ukraine. And they also say that they want their own intel to essentially confirm all of this. The flip side, of course, is coming from Russia. Spokesman for the Russian government saying today marks the biggest propaganda effort that we've seen from the West, with an invasion that did not take place and that was essentially fake.
AMH, just moments ago, Secretary Blinken with MSNBC, the US broadcaster, saying there's what Russia says and what Russia does, and we haven't seen any pullback from its forces.
Yeah, basically reiterated exactly what we heard from Ukraine's foreign minister yesterday, the second we had that news of reporting out of the Russian Defense Ministry that they had planned and were moving troops back. And to go a little bit further, Secretary of State Tony Blinken also talked about the fact that not only are they not seeing Russia pull the troops back, but they're actually seeing an effort to move some forward. And they want to engage with the Kremlin.
Push up again with the industrial production news, you see. That was the news spike. As I said, going the way of the news as it's free market. And again, if you had put a buy-in on here like I did and got in and out, and you wanted to hold it again, where would your stop loss be? Would be below here. So, you'd have won. And again, you'll take profit is going to be on the heavy resistance zone. Just a quick one, bonus trade. But looking at the ACT system, where the levels are. RSI's bounced back up to 68. Like I say, I'm getting ready to pick the sells. See if we can get a dip down. 70, you see, nice tasty back.
We step back and
get my next arrow in here for NY Open.
How will companies be able to pass that along? That's the first problem for corporate profitability. And then
We've got no positions open at the moment. We've just got those last two buys away on gold, going the way of the news. You can see a little arrow giving us a direction. I'm expecting NY Open to catch a spike down to
so we think he's right. The rest of the FOMC
maybe 188, at least 10 pips.
Points a couple times this year are wrong. And here's another.
Here's a bit of manipulation. That's where you've got to leave yourself enough to accept some drawdown, not panic. Trust your analysis in the system.
Either in equities or in the commodities.
Well, now look, just pushing back down again.
For that instance, I mean, we saw a little bit of a flight to quality on Friday after comments from the White House, but broadly speaking, the market seems to be dismissing any sort of serious escalation, if you will, coming from the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
I'm gonna get finished with this first.
I think that there's we just have to see real action before you start seeing panic. What the situation is doing right now is contributing to the volatility in equities as well as fixed income markets, broadly speaking. But again, I think all bets are off if there's actually action, because you're going to see a significant repricing both in the bonds as well as in the stock markets and in the commodity complex, which is going to be very, very negative for the economy. And that's why I think another reason why the Fed's going to be very, very careful heading into March and not jumping into 50 basis point rate hike.
Well, crude's already in the 90s, just short of 95 on Brent at 94.89, 93.49 on WTI. Matt Hornback, this takes...
Yeah, crude backing away from the market.
Wilson's work over the weekend as well. It starts with an inflation story, then a rate response, then a health scare. You're on point 3, Matt Hornback, already.
Yeah, well, I mean, John, I think the growth scare part of that
One's waiting.
Series you just mentioned is really where
6 minutes to go.
Today, at least in my conversations with investors,
The higher gold goes, the better in a way. You can see it's just ranging beautiful. It's going to spike up and drop down. That's what we want.
The future of economic activity in the U.S. and abroad, and so when we look at the flattening of the yield curve, our read of it, and much to the point that Subhadra raised on the lack of reaction, more or less, in financial markets.
Also breaks that key level
between the Russia and Ukraine is really a liquidity effect, we think. I mean, we have to remember that both the ECB and the Fed are still easing monetary policy, if you can believe it, with their bond purchases. And I think ultimately that source of liquidity, albeit it's much less today than it was last year, is still making its way into financial.
Are those going to be our small center legs? Let's see.
From some of these geopolitical events that we're monitoring.
Look, Matt, it's a good point. Every time we have this conversation, I laugh. Every time someone reminds us of it, they're still doing QE. It's not over yet. Bob Michael, Matt Hornback, Sebastian Rajap sticking with us. Staying on top of the diplomacy, the headlines coming from respective leaders at the moment. A little bit later, President Biden to speak with his German counterpart, Chancellor Scholz. That will happen today, according to a US official. Another one for the diary. Coming up next, the morning calls in later. The worst inflation in a decade. Heineken boosting its prices to offset surging input costs and worried people might drink less beer. Really? That conversation's still ahead from New York. This is Bloomberg.
Getting ready. And we've got the housing market index for February is 83. Previous month and expected to be the same. A monthly poll of home builders about single family sales projections 6 higher than 50. I believe sales favourable. So obviously 80 mean hey, but we're still, you know, it's priced in, so that's why we don't just go, oh, it's a buy, because this 83 figure is already priced in. We need to see it better or worse. That's how you trade the news. You don't just go, oh, it says 50, so therefore it must be a buy. No. Lovely if it was that easy. We need to see a differential. Or the same, and if it is the same, then obviously it should still be a buy for West 30 and dollar and some gold the reverse, obviously, because this is in open. There we go, the reverse. See if gold hits a key level and bounces up. So yeah, you can read any of these news events and figure out how you might trade them, and that's backed to by the business inventory from December, the kind of thing. And again, higher than expected is negative inventory. And with this one, this is where you trade this the way gold, where the news. So if this is negative,
you have a world of
obviously
young people that want their own financial system.
You sell gold, and it's a higher figure, then it would be a buy for gold. Reverse for the US dollar, as you can see there.
And I'm a big believer in it.
It's expected to be up, so 1.3 to 2.1, so that would be sell for gold. Is higher than 2.1. See.
Here's the situation, whipsawed by headlines. The Russian government suggesting they're pulling back. The US government would like to see some verification of that. And in the meantime, we just knock it around in between headlines from either side of the Atlantic. Futures down 0.5%.
Yeah, 3 minutes to open.
Yeah, it's exactly right. He doesn't know which way the market's going to go.
Yields back in. A few basis points, down by 2 or 3 on 10.
But again, if it's good news for Russia, again, gold should drop a little bit. So again, that's even better. And that's why we want to sell gold at the highest possible point.
Underappreciated and improving free cash flow. A stock is unchanged. Bank of America downgrading Viacom CBS to neutral, no longer expecting an imminent takeover following its quarterly results. And finally, Evercore upgrading Macy's to outperform the $50 price target, seeing several catalysts potentially boosting shares.
Remember, gold's bought on both of these news events pre-market.
Yeah.
It may react the opposite way on market open, so everybody be prepared.
Sounding the alarm on surging inflation with Walmart earnings on deck. From New York, this is Bloomberg.
Size 60.
Excuse me.
See if we get trade out of this. So we're still hanging around on gold, of course. trade yet. Open. We're done on our small account. Again. Positive. Get into that overbought region. Everything is. See, 1 minute to go. Let's see if we are going to get this dip down our blue zone. Again, we're just looking for that 10 pips.
Space, you
oh.
probably think
Spike down to a low here.
one space agency that travels under the radar is ESA, which is surprising.
Go, right, let's see. 30 seconds. See what we can grab. If we get a touchdown to our breakout zone, minor support zone, get a jump up first and then push in the right direction.
If we want to have a successful human missions to Mars, we are going to have to learn
Nearly there.
to live and work off-world in a different way. The place where we are
Fighting both ways.
Go.
Can ESA help humanity?
Size 69. Remember, it's got to break that level. It's got to break that 63 level. Great, nice little manipulation, nice little spike up. The drop. Beautiful. So that's where you'd set your stop loss. Where would you set it? The EXT level above there. That's where you would set it. Well, that's what I like to say. That's the good thing about the Axe trading system. That's what it gives you. You're spiking just above the previous high, but here was your stop loss. Size 71.
That'll spike up.
Nice, spiked up, beautiful.
It's really a reminder, isn't it, just how sensitive the markets are to any commentary about trade. We did see some pressure on the yuan, we did see some pressure on the futures. That is now being reversed.
See this almost as a continuation of the second one. Perfect.
That it is.
On the minor resistance at 1861. So now you'll be looking for buys. See if we get a 75 re-entry. Then I can sell at the top.
Out of Germany, out of the United States, Chancellor Scholz and President Biden will
They get the drop.
a little bit later.
It's when to get in.
Down a half of 1% going into the opening bell. There is your opening bell. Switch to the board and get to the bond market. CPI last week was hot. The PPI was hot. Retail sales were good.
Hitting that resistance. Beautiful. Look at that. Gone light green and on the edge there. Perfect. Scenario to get a buy in.
Euro dollar unchanged at 113.57. Crude just about positive, up by 1.5%. 93.50, let's call it, on WTI. So 20 seconds in, your equity market is lower by a third of 1%. Bottom of the pile here, communication services down 0.6%. At the top, given where crude is right now, energy equities back on top,
back out.
advancing by 0.7%.
Remember, it's the first 15 minutes and then we've got the news.
Here's Taylor Riggs.
John, it's interesting that you mentioned technology sort of at the bottom of this.
Great open spike. Beautiful.
Here in many cases, there's some interesting movers as it comes to this space. Remember
is it going to be the move or is it manipulation?
To their iOS software on how they can track you, making it harder actually to track you across different apps. Well, it looks like now Alphabet is trying to do a similar story when it comes to their Android phones, and so really making it harder for some of the advertisers to track you, make it more personalized. When Apple did that, remember, it wiped out about $300 billion from Meta. We know that is Facebook, their market cap.
Wow.
Just your daily reminder, with that stock off 3% today, you're still off 40% from your record high and off 30% from the last earnings. So really all trying to digest what some of these changes within the social media space mean for some of these companies as well. Flip up the board because we're also in the middle of earnings. So let's take a look at this.
Remember, when we get to the second level, this is where we can take the sales.
But investors really digesting the
Hung on because I waited. I saw the action move, so I just waited. All you gotta do is wait. There's the key level. You can put the RSI line across that now. Look and see.
lot to continue to remain in
Bang.
that space.
Going up.
Airbnb was a huge standout, as
80
I said
is where
at the
it
top
hit
of the hour.
before,
175
then came
customers
away.
last
And
quarter.
previously
Looked
here, look
nice
as
for
well.
more than 3 months or more.
Didn't
So,
get
John, we
it,
may
didn't
be
break
the only
it, didn't
ones
break it.
not away for
So
3 months. We're actually still here in the office. And finally, Kraft Holdings. It is all about that price pressure and passing those costs on.
Old surprisers going the opposite way. Surprise. But there you
It
go. That's what you
is.
get.
That's
But we know we're still waiting for that drop. So we're going to hold
Yep.
on.
And Taylor, you can turn your work device off without fear of reprisal.
And we've still got this news to help us as well.
Emails. We're all going to Brussels. Taylor Riggs, thank you very much.
Which, if it is as expected, will be an also drop fact.
Beer is about to get more expensive. This was the Heineken CEO.
80 again.
The big unknown is, how much of pricing are we able to pass through? We already took
Beautiful break that
8.3%
was there.
pricing
We
last
filled
year,
it.
11% in the second half. That's about the highest
I'm going to
pricing
hold a
that we
couple
have
of
seen in a
cells.
generation. We're a bit cautious in our outlook.
I got a
so we
couple
don't
holding as
know
well.
for how long that will last, as what's happening right now is rather unprecedented.
Kelly Lyons, will consumers push back?
Well, that is exactly the question. Inflation is front and center, not just for companies like Heineken, but for consumers as well, and of course, for central banks. And just to put in perspective the kind of inflation we are talking about,
It could have been still the Russian news, you see.
9.7% on producer prices.
No, all that was good
7.5%
news.
on consumers. That is the reality at the moment. And the
But
interesting
business
thing, John,
inventory
is we've
is in
seen
this
showing up
in 20
consumer
minutes.
sentiment. It has been diving as inflation has hit them everywhere, from the grocery store to the gas pump. But that
Remember, it's
hasn't
the
actually
first
materially
15 minutes.
translated into any spending pullback as of yet. We saw that borne out with
Got
the retail sales
$1.28
data
out on
we
that
got
buy.
this morning, blowing estimates out of the water,
$1.18.
showing demand
Very
is
good.
still resilient in the face of inflation. The question is how long that's going to last. If consumers will continue to tolerate these higher prices as real wage growth is lagging and they're starting to draw down on their pandemic savings. And this is really what the Heineken CEO was alluding to. It's an issue for retailers as well, as they try to exercise pricing power in order to protect their profit margins with some of the higher costs that they are
81.
facing, but without doing a material hit to the top line as a result. That is especially true for discount retailers that cater to lower end consumers like Walmart, which will be reporting tomorrow. And we'll get more retail reports from Home Depot, TJX, Lowe's over the course of the next week. Those cost pressures will be front and center, John.
Kelly Lyons, thank you very much. Bob Michael, can I just come over to you? Could you do a quick study on the price elasticity of demand for beer? What was your thoughts? Just lean on
Not
your
really
beer
happy
prices
about that
right now.
inflation of beer prices.
No.
You moan about it for
I know.
a few weeks and then you pay for it. And I think
Yeah, that's
Taylor
it.
made a very important
Moan
point
about it, but you still
how
pay for it.
resilient the consumer is. It bounced back from bad spending in December with strong spending in January. The consumer looks great. That's 2/3 of the economy. We have to accept that. You look at deposit balances, they are still very high. Sure, they've come down a little bit. They are still very high. And wages are going up at rates we haven't seen in decades. And in a
Beautiful.
tight
Like you
labor
say,
market,
when I
guess
climb
what?
back to that.
Heineken is going to raise its prices, and then it's going to have to pay its workers more, first to find workers,
heavy
and
resistance
then
zone.
they're going to demand higher wages so they could pay for the higher prices of the beer.
On the US consumer, I'll take that last remark seriously. RBC's Amy Wu Silverman said this.
Like an Ollie or a dollar store, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, the Walmart, Yum, all these cohorts where it's very leveraged, that low-end consumer. We're not seeing that start to be priced in, but now the options market is starting to flag that concern to the downside.
Zapata, are you expecting some pushback from the consumer this time around?
It's possible,
The
right?
open,
But
as it went the opposite
counterbalance
way.
to the consumer
Going
kind
up
of push
still
back
more.
on this is that the employment
84
picture
now.
is pretty robust.
Let's
We're
get to
looking at
that
an economy
over
that's at or close to full employment,
overbought zone.
with
So this is where we can
investors
look
have a decent
at
amount of
loading the
disposable
cells.
income
Once
in
it gets
the
up here and
bank.
hangs
They
around
also
here.
have a decent amount of savings. So I think that this, it's going to have to, prices have to remain higher.
Amazing, there's
for
been
a
no
lot
correction
longer
yet, so we've got to
us
wait for
see
that.
really meaningfully impact
Been-
the consumer. You're seeing that in the January
And just
retail
before we
sales
came on
data,
air, look,
where,
it's been pretty much all
investors,
green on the screen for
money
gold.
that they didn't spend perhaps in December because of the Omicron variant, they're spending in January in online as opposed to in-store purchases. So there's money to be spent, and I think you're going to see that at least for the first half of the year, which is kind of supportive in some respects for policy. So that sort of trajectory, I think, is here to stay. We'll have to see if that persists, because real earnings are coming under pressure, and over time, I think the consumers are going to have to pull back.
Ready?
If you're just tuning in, we're about 6 minutes into the session. We're pulling back on 10-year Treasury yields by 2 basis points, still north of 2%. Not a major move. One more stop for this bond market. At about 1 p.m. Eastern, we get an issue of $19 billion worth of 20-year notes, then the Fed minutes. We take a look at the equity market. We're pulling back just a subtle amount, a mild move lower. No drama here in a big way. Just some comments from Secretary Blinken in the last hour saying the following, quote, "There's what Russia says and what Russia does, and we haven't seen any pullback of its forces. So far, quote, we haven't seen it." That back and forth just continues. That echoes what we heard from the president yesterday and what we've heard repeatedly now twice in the last 24 hours from the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. So equity's just a little bit lower, softer on that. The story from Mike Wilson and Morgan Stanley is this. Let me quote him. "It's time to pivot to growth and how much it will decelerate. We remain more concerned about growth than most, and Friday's consumer confidence number should not be overlooked in that regard. Correction remains incomplete." Now, Matt Hornback, you work closely with Mike, so let's build on this together. What are your thoughts on this issue with the consumer, and why is this belief that risk assets haven't seen that correction that some people think we have?
Well, John, I mean, I think within any research organization worth its salt, there's healthy debate about these various issues, and in an organization that applies. I mean, our sense of it is that growth is set to accelerate from here.
We're back now. Now let's wait for this news. What we got?
I'm looking at the
20
economy.
minutes.
I mean,
20
with respect
minutes.
to this
Keep
idea
watching.
that consumers
See
are
if we're going to get
feeling badly about paying higher prices. I mean,
dip.
who wouldn't be feeling badly about paying higher prices? The question is,
We
are
test
you
that
willing
neutral
to
zone.
pay
This is
those
what we
higher
want.
prices? And we see very clearly that people are willing to pay them. Now, if people don't feel like they can
See if we can scalp a little bit on the way down.
prices, there are plenty of options for them, right? They can demand higher wages, which is something that we're seeing. If they're not working, they can go out and fill one of the 3 million more job openings that we have today than existed before the pandemic. So if you're really upset about paying higher prices for beer, which I can appreciate most people would be, go out and get a job, or you can actually demand higher wages. This is the environment for you to do that. And that's what we're seeing. So we think growth is going to be pretty healthy this year, John.
Matt, the issue, though, as you know, it's not as simple as going out and getting a job. Wage growth in real terms is negative. Isn't that the issue at play here at the moment, Matt?
Well, John, look, when the money hits my bank account, it hits in nominal dollars. It doesn't hit in real dollars. And it's ultimately my decision as to whether I take those nominal dollars and go pay nominal prices. And again, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing people going out and paying higher nominal prices. And that is in part a factor behind what's driving inflation higher. Is the demand side of it. And again, like I said, our economists expect a very robust real economy this year. We've got
emails from
growth,
people.
upwards of 4%.
Keep
We're
watching.
not that far away from consensus either. So consensus also expects very strong real economic activity this year. And as we see that come through, you know, this is what the Fed is going to have to increasingly focus on.
Matt Hornback, you know me well. I'd never look to expose internal divisions of a research department, ever. But Michael, your view on why this correction is incomplete?
Could I just add one thing to Matt's comments? If you can't afford it as a consumer, what do? You finance it. And this is where the Fed has to enter the fray, because inflation is pushing up the cost of goods and services everywhere. You're seeing it in housing prices, but guess what? Consumers will pay higher housing prices because the cost of mortgage financing is still at generational lows. It's the weekend, you want your beer, it's going to cost more, you don't have a lot of cash, put it on your credit card and figure out how to pay it back later. Those credit card costs are also low. So I think that's one of the things we need to talk about. Why the Fed is coming in and raising rates is because the cost of financing these higher prices is not prohibitive. Now, what did you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about a market correction, but you brought up something more interesting. This rebound, this recovery we've seen, Bob, wasn't really fueled by consumer debt, household debt. It was fueled by fiscal policy. And I just wonder, Bob, how you think this market, how consumers, how the economy will respond to higher interest rates this time around with that in mind.
H2 RSI look.
Really?
You're going to break that 80 level.
Know who goes out and buys a house.
You're ready to click a little
It's
sell.
about to.
Yeah, I'm in profit on a
Already,
sell.
Bob, let's talk about consumer.
I already got one in on the wick.
Look at retail sales. Furniture was a big item. A lot of that gets
This is an
financed
aggressive,
with
but when you see it curl
jobs,
down, if it breaks out of the zone, I always
there's
tell
a
everybody
lot
to
of
the chance to
financing
get
that
in
occurs.
for a quick sell.
You're right. There was a huge fiscal impulse, and that fiscal impulse created higher savings, and that's trickling down a bit. But that's maybe it's giving the consumer
Get another
conviction
dollar.
to keep spending. And then Matt's right. They're watching the
And then we'll
deposits
try and load some more cells in
into their account go up.
as we
They're
get the
not thinking of
correction.
it in real terms. They're thinking of it in absolute terms. And
I
we
popped
think
one
that
in at
continues for the next couple of years.
1863.40, so I'm sitting on that one. Got a good entry.
Mine was 1862, 78. That's doing well as well for me now.
There's definitely,
Yes, sir.
I think growth is going to be pretty robust, for this year. And for the most part, I think that
Oh God,
this
they got him on the.
trajectory towards higher yields is very much in play.
I can't stand hearing Mitch McConnell
We
speak.
just have to see how
That is
the
absolutely
data
the
progresses,
worst.
if the Fed will actually be able to raise rates at the same pace that at which the market's pricing in.
You see what happens when you mention the price of beer, Sabatra, how fired up the gentlemen get every single time. How spicy these kind of segments get, how quickly they do. Sabatra, thank you. Sabatra Rajappa, to Matt Hornback and to Bob Michael. We're not trying to fall out here. Everybody's friends. It's good to catch up with you both. Thank you very much. About 12, 13 minutes into the session. Your equity market's pulling back just a little bit.
A little push back up.
Yeah, a little push back up. Still
We haven't
hold.
talked about so far. The president's Fed nominees hanging in limbo.
Sarah Bloom Raskin has spent recent years pressuring the Fed to stop being a neutral regulator and instead become an ideological left-wing activist body.
That's next. This is Bloomberg.
Hey, get up.
Back, push down, look. Loving that 80 zone at the moment, you see. We're back to 80. Profit again on the sell. I'm just holding this time. I don't usually hold this long, but I'm just holding because I just want to see a bigger move. Like I say, if it breaks above that blue zone, then we're going for buys. But
neutralize the virus, but not as efficiently, because various studies showing that reduction up to 40-fold, meaning that a third dose is a must for it to successfully neutralize the variant. What we don't know is still that what are the effects of mix and matching between vaccines, and what are the capabilities of antibodies produced from this mix and matching in neutralizing Omicron. Because as we know, many parts of the world use different types of vaccines, and that would be a great data to look at. It will be also great to look at the majority of the studies done, uses a small sample number, and most of the time when you translate it to real world, the data changes. So it will be really good to look at large-scale data of the ability of antibodies from vaccines to neutralize this variant. Grateful here today that the virus, Omicron variant, still uses ACE2 receptor as its main entry. It means that all of the vaccines which are designed with spike in mind still works. Imagine if it uses a different receptor other than ACE2. None of the vaccines would work today. So I think that is the best news that we got from all these studies which came recently.
Again.
Bloomberg has enhanced search on the terminal to deliver what you need when you need it. Now, you can simply type phrases in everyday English in the command line. Compare financials. Find people. Analyze markets. You can enter phrases or or ask questions. What do you want to know?
News is incoming soon.
Ask a
About
question
10 minutes.
Or visit SearchGo to find answers now.
Look. Yep.
I will delay votes on these nominees. We will update you when we've rescheduled. My Republican colleagues claim it's because they haven't gotten the information they've requested.
So the capacity utilization rate was 77, better than expected as well. So the business adventurers and the housing market is what we got.
By the ranking member and Republicans.
Well, they said it was 82 and expected 83. 82. They say it's going to be lower. So weird. You always get a mismatch. They never agree.
The GOP Senator Bill Hagerty demanding.
But we know what we're looking at on here. We'll go the opposite as result. And obviously, if this is better than expected, that will help our case for a sell on gold. She's just ranging around the 80, holding. No stress, no panic on this.
Let's head back down to DC and
we know what pattern we're looking for. Yes, there's a chance of it creeping to that heavy resistance zone. Here it's already kind of touched it already. Here's our big breakout zone. This area, mark that area from the previous.
Becoming very contentious, and we should point out that the timeline now is very elusive.
This is what we're waiting for.
Now you not only have an issue with Sarah Bloom Raskin.
Is this news going to be the trigger?
Do not want to push ahead on her vote. And the Democrats are saying they are all going to be lumped together. All 5 of the president's Fed nominations are right now in limbo. And the Senate is going to go on recess starting Friday afternoon. So what you have now is potentially no movement forward on the president's Fed picks. And all
25 cents in drawdown, 30 cents in drawdown, 40 cents in drawdown, 18 cents in drawdown. 5 in profit. This is how it's fluctuating around. Within that candle,
this came from the chief executive of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, saying the following:
about 25 cents in profit, but I didn't take it. Should have done. Could have gone in again then at the top. When you've got an idea of the direction, that's what you want to do, is take the profit, wait for it to go in the reverse again, and sell at the top again, or you buy if it was the reverse. You know, they're just the techniques.
The leader of China, the Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Well, they're cracking down because they're worried about the outbreak of COVID.
See, we can see the momentum. You had them 3 nice big breakout bullish candles, followed by 3 kind of morning star dojis. See, and look at the market trend on our dashboard, bullish and falling. So, still, you know, buy zone, but it's losing its.
Much more quickly than
it's losing that momentum up there at the top.
Yeah, and it's 151% for the day.
That they are starting to get rid of the restrictions on people's ability to go out. China, of course.
See, you had the same move here when RSI got to the 81. Here, look what happened.
We must do everything
Bang.
possible because they have their
Dropped
no
for
COVID policy. So that leaves the question: what happens here in the United States next week?
For
the
129
is
points.
Expected to reduce its mask mandate, make a change to that, so we don't
42
wear
pips.
them as much.
Dropped even further after retesting, but that's the kind of initial drop. So, you know, big same from here.
Disney is dropping
400, it would take us to, guess where?
As of the end
The
of
neutral
this week,
support zone.
February 17th, face coverings will be optional for fully vaccinated guests in
That's
both
ideally what we
outdoor
want.
and indoor locations. It's all a reminder that no matter what
That will take us exactly back to where we started at the open as well.
Have you seen this quote from Xi Jinping? Just to go back to that, Mike, I just want to read that out for our audience.
News will be our trigger on this. Let's see.
Hong Kong's government must take up the main responsibility
7 minutes.
to stabilise and control the pandemic as soon as possible.
Then I'm going to grab a coffee while I wait for the oil
Mobilise all available forces and
result.
resources and take all necessary measures to ensure the safety and health of Hong Kong's citizens and the stability of Hong Kong's society. Mike, you've covered this stuff for a long time. Have you seen the Chinese president take such a strong line to speak so forcefully about what's happening in Hong Kong?
Well, not necessarily about what's happening in Hong Kong, although when they were going through a lot of the civil disobedience, Xi Jinping was very strong on cracking down on that. It's the COVID zero policy. His policy is there should be no COVID in China, and you isolate people and you lock down until you get rid of any outbreaks. And Hong Kong hasn't done that yet. Much of the rest of the country has. It's slowed the economy, and he's worried that we're going to see some real problems with Hong Kong, given its role as a financial center, as an export center, if they don't eliminate COVID from there.
Mike, got to run in a minute. Just a final word. Caught up with AMH just then, down in Washington. What was happening with the Fed picks? How do you think this plays out?
Well, it's going to be up to the Democrats' leadership to decide whether they want to take the steps that they do have available to them to pull the nomination from the banking committee and take it to the floor directly. It's complicated, but they can do it. All of that has to wait on the New Mexico Senator Ben.
Back again. Here we go. I'm back to 10 cents drawdown. Oh, and now profit. 10 cents drawdown.
Let's get some sector price action on this
Yo-yoing.
as we pull back just a bit. Here's Kriti Gupta.
Well, good morning, John. Red on the screen, a lot of it has to do with
Oh, 25 cents, 30, 40 cents, 46 cents,
in that big tech sector.
50, 60,
Yesterday you saw the NASDAQ
70.
2.5%, so perhaps a reaction to simply the
Take
gains
that
we
if it
saw
goes a bit
yesterday.
more.
To the
Come on,
top side, though, you
down
are
again.
seeing energy outperform
Feel that
up
wick.
2%. A lot of this has to do with, of course, following oil prices, really tracking the uncertainty between those Russian and Ukrainian
Messiah, look at that.
Let's get
Banging
back to the tech story,
67.
though, because that's really where you're seeing a lot of action, not just big tech, but specifically in social media names. This comes after Google is planning to adopt new privacy.
I'm gonna take my $1.84 profit on that. $1.56 whenever it closed.
Smartphones. It's a move
Well done.
that follows what Apple did not long ago and puts limits on companies that get a lot of revenue from tracking.
I may take another sell whenever we break that trend line.
Yeah.
Or we break the 63 level or the RSI average line. If we break those, I'll take another cheeky sell. Otherwise, sitting on it.
Yeah, here's our level here. Look, you see. Bang, it's gone flat.
Yep.
Drop there.
So now we're going to have center legs formed. We were thinking they were earlier, but now we're going to be looking for our center legs.
What in
Probably look.
Like I say, we're looking
Probably
for
look.
40 drop, like you say, down to here.
We're going to see that neutral support zone again before the end of the.
Yep.
I can assure you. Let me look back.
And industry experts.
Let me look
via
back.
live and on-demand webinars, only from Bloomberg. Start exploring to see what's moving the markets. Visit Bloomberg.com/webinars.
The capital markets can really help the shift to sustainable and decarbonized global economy. What are you noticing in that as ESG is now the buzzword literally everywhere?
It is definitely the topic of conversation in most meetings I have with
1562, 740, 99, 930, come back up again.
Mercedes-Benz is on a path towards CO2 neutral.
Round, see that round.
So we have
You can see.
there, and really we're going to step by step electrify everything. And what does that mean?
Right.
Combustion engines get electrified.
$25 minutes in, equities pulling back here by 0.7% on the S&P. On the Nasdaq, by a similar amount, we're off by more than 1% now, down by 1.4 on the Nasdaq 100.
Oh, Lord.
It's been decent. CPI last week, massive upside surprise. PPI,
19 billion in 20-year bonds.
Retail sales upside surprise. When I say decent, I mean decent for those calling for a big move.
Yeah, 1862, 650.
The likes of Matt Hornback, Bob Michael talking up a 50 basis point move from this Fed in the middle of March next month. That's the equity picture. Here's the bond market story. 2s, 10s and 30s. Yields come in as equities start to dissolve a little bit lower as well. We're down by 3 basis points on 2s, just short of 155 on 10s at 2.0259%, down 2 basis points.
Story around the same zone.
By headlines out of Ukraine, Russia.
Blue zone now, you see.
A conversation a little bit later between Chancellor Scholz and President Biden. That's set to take place today. We'll bring you the headlines as they come through. As the price action, here's the trading diary. Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari speaking at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Then the U.S. Treasury selling $19 billion in 20-year bonds at 1 p.m. We'll get the Fed minutes at 2 p.m. plus President Biden meeting with Germany's Olaf Scholz. Initial jobless claims coming up on Thursday and more Fed speak. Mester, Evans and Williams all on the docket. From New York City, Thank you for choosing Bloomberg TV. For our audience,
Thank you, Jonathan.
This was the countdown to the open.
Thank you for choosing Mohawk Forex. Oh, right. Curling up a bit, see the average line dip. Get a true break and a true reversal of the trend once we break that 65. But you can still scalp and take your profit and catch the bounce back if you want. So we're looking for a retest of that neutral support ideally. Size now 70.
This chip shortage is going to last longer than many people believe, likely straight through this year, and I wonder
So
what
we've
that
got
means
40
for
seconds to the
prices.
news. Here we go to the housing market index, remember? See if we go with the reverse on this news. Remember, the business inventories is the same. But reverse direction. See what we get.
And what it showed is that there's a real shortage. Demand is 20% higher than it was a couple of years ago. You know, there's a huge mismatch in supply and demand.
In this at the same time.
Prices are higher. So what has to happen is we need to make more chips. Unfortunately, there's no easy solution. The solution is increased domestic manufacturing of chips.
50% profit while waiting. Worse than expected. They're going to push gold up possibly. Look. Back down. So, result as expected. Now that's good news. So again, that is the reverse. So you've got a conflict. You've probably got a sell here as well. So let's see. Push up at the moment. Reverse. News. To NAHB. That's going to spike gold up.
Pepsi's number fever.
The drop, so it's going to be even more of a delay.
It's probably gone down in history as one of the biggest marketing disasters in history, mainly because of a human error that led Pepsi to print more winning caps than they planned.
See, your little spike up. You see, there was your entry point. There was your buy on gold.
Reporting this story took
Been
over a year.
5 pips.
Resulted in me flying
Up higher.
to the Philippines to meet unlucky winners and to find out exactly what happened back then in the 1990s.
RSI 69. We still want this to come back down again. Yeah, I got 54 on that, so I'm up to $3.63. Yay! I've done 5%. I struggled to get to 10%. Unless all these cells come off. Let's see if we can get some more cells in. But 5% is good. We're over 5%.
All things America, and that extends to their love for soft drinks, Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola. In the 1990s, it was everywhere. Pepsi and Coca-Cola were embroiled in what is now known as the Cola Wars. It was a fierce battle for market dominance. Number fever was already a really popular.
So remember, we just got the news. There we go. Push down, pushed up, push down. 65. Is it going to break our 64 zone? 60 it is. It's in. Can we get some sells finally? Real sells.
The good thing is 64 and our RSI average are right around the same area. So we break those two. May have a little traffic in the neutral zone, but still good for sell for sure.
Doesn't sound like a lot now, but in 1992, that was a phenomenal amount of money. You've got to remember that in the Philippines at the time, the average monthly income was about...
Our baseline is lining up right at neutral support as well.
Yep.
Number fever caught fire in the Philippines.
So we're set for 10 pips. Points.
Parents were squirreling away all of the bottle caps in bags. You would
Say, is it going to retest right back down to where the open was?
It was a national phenomenon.
Down to that flat part of the...
You know where the flat line is? Yeah.
1858.
Number fever boosted Pepsi
Yep.
sales every month from $10 million to $14 million. It had a huge impact on Pepsi's bottom line. Number fever quickly became number hysteria. Maids were being jailed for stealing their employers' winning bottle caps. There was even some murders over winning bottle caps. People were fighting in the streets over these caps. There were signs that there were going to be problems with number fever very early.
Buying.
Pepsi had rolled out the competition in Chile.
9.
The garbled facts had caused some kind of problem with the winning.
So green for some pricing. I told you once it clips that top 83, 84, 85, we like to see a nice reversal out there.
If they didn't keep their eye on the ball. So in 1992, Pepsi decided to extend the campaign in the Philippines, and they announced that the competition would go on for a few more weeks.
11 trade suit.
On the television news, they announced the latest winning number, 349. The problem was 349 had already been allocated as a non-winning number in earlier campaigns. So there were literally hundreds of thousands of bottle caps with 349.
Getting up there, 61, supposed to break this flat. I can move this down now because the line wants to take a look. Oh, it's following me. There you go, following me down.
349, 349. Some people had 10 lucky 349 bottle caps. People were dancing in the streets, celebrating. They thought their problems were over. They were millionaires. It's still not certain exactly how many winners there were of lucky 349 bottle caps, but we know that Pepsi printed over 600,000 of them. Pepsi realized very early that there was a problem. Hundreds of people started arriving at their bottling plants with their...
Yeah, the good thing about this, when you're trading a pattern like this, in a zone, you know if you're going to get a bounce. You see holding a sell here, look. You just got to be able to hold that drawdown here before you're going to get a bigger drop. You know, this could be what we're looking at here. Or it could be that we get down to our neutral or thereabouts like that now, before a retest of this blue zone. Then down. And we could come down to our breakout zone, could be back down here. News dependent, you know. That's what we could be looking at.
Remember, this is all fundamental driven. Yesterday, we had that sharp push up and a complete retracement. Or Monday, we had that sharp push up to 1880, and we had a complete retracement back to 1850.
Yep.
You know.
Of this whole thing. She was walking to a nearby store to buy some rice one day when a Molotov cocktail was thrown at a Pepsi truck in a violent...
Just messing around, so it could be the centre now, the centre of the centre leg. They'll try and nip in for some more sales. Definitely, it hasn't. You know, this is nowhere. You know, in no way a bearish move yet.
No.
Still strong ball, still 53%, as you can see. Bullish and rising is the market trend, as we know, because we know what pattern we're looking for. So we're just in a holding pattern here, basically.
And Raul told me that he'd never remarried. He'd told me that he'd gone to meet Pepsi executives after his wife was killed.
Then we've got the
he was angry. he said to them,
Oil and gas news coming up. 22 minutes. And we'll be back later on for the Fed minutes.
FOMC.
Yeah, see what we get on that. It's going to be interesting.
Pepsi was somehow involved in bombing their own trucks. I found a newspaper report with a headline that said, Pepsi goons bomb their own trucks. And when I visited the MBI, the police department in the Philippines, they presented me with documents and interviews with people who claimed that
Watch this.
had paid them to cause riots and inside their plants in order to destabilize.
Just going to grab a coffee. I'll be back in 2 secs. Just top my coffee up 1 sec. We'll keep watching gold.
Right on.
That were fighting them to try and curry favor. I just thought that was so shocking. And of course, Pepsi denied it. But how bizarre that a company would be accused of...
FOMC minutes in 3 hours and 50 minutes.
The contest had sparked so much anger in the Philippines because it landed at just this really weird time in the Philippines' history. It was during a crazy election that was racked with allegations of fraud. The Philippines was in a kind of love-hate relationship with America. They loved, obviously, the American aid and finances that was pouring into the country, but at the same time, they yearned for independence in their own country. Vicente Del Fierro was a local preacher living in Manila, and he hated the Number Fever campaign. Del Fierro thought Pepsi's Number Fever campaign was just one of the many ways that America was asserting its dominance over a third world country. He hated seeing his fellow countrymen get ripped off, in his eyes, by this huge multinational American company. He wanted justice. Del Fierro rounded up over 800 winners of 349 bottle caps, and he got them all together to sue Pepsi for over $400 million to be divided between those holders of lucky bottle caps. Del Fierro took money from some of the people who could afford it. They paid him 500 pesos to help with legal fees, but for people who couldn't afford the money, he would just represent them pro bono.
Is to build up pressure on Pepsi. And so you see people marching in the streets. So we have mounted our own campaign, even in the U.S.
He flew to America and he hired 2 consumer lawyers here in America to take on Pepsi. He had a meeting at Pepsi's headquarters to try and resolve the problem, but he said he wanted to take it all the way to the highest courts in America. When those cases were heard in America, those courts decided that this was a problem that should be heard in the Philippines, not in America. Back in the Philippines, Del Fierro continued his case in the Filipino courts. At one stage, there were arrest warrants handed out for 9 Pepsi-Cola executives, which he saw as a big victory. We don't know if those arrest warrants were ever upheld, but it made newspaper headlines across the country. Pepsi did not take kindly to Del Fierro's campaign. They tried everything to shut him down. They sued him for libel.
My father had to attend 3 times a month for a branch 145 and another hearing for the branch 113 also 3 times a month. Also, there was a time my father was hospital due to heart failure. Still, he had to attend the 2 branch hearing. Otherwise, for not attending, the judge will issue warrant of arrest to my father. My father passed away January 13, 2010. After staying for almost 1 year in the hospital, he died of complication due to heart failure. After the death of my father, I was inspired to do the website. PepsiCo will be remembered for what they did to the consumer in the Philippines and to my father.
When I reached out to Pepsi for comment on this story, they claimed that they didn't have access to anyone who was working at Pepsi that was around in those days. They also said that during COVID-19 they didn't have access to their documents about this, but you know, they were very careful to say that they were sorry for everything that happened, and we do know that Pepsi did try everything to try and make this right. The Pepsi number fever disaster cost the company millions. We know that they paid up to $10 million in those goodwill payments, but the financial effect could be much greater. After the disaster, we know that Pepsi sales dipped. They were overtaken by Coca-Cola again. Pepsi's number fever disaster changed the legacy of that soft drink in the Philippines forever. Some people of a certain age won't touch it. For many people, Pepsi is a taboo word. A lot of the people that I spoke to were still quite traumatized by their experience, by that experience of winning $1 million pesos, losing it, and then returning to their normal life in poverty in Manila.
When the news of the bombing came out, it was a massive story in Germany.
We are following some breaking news coming to us out of Dortmund in Germany.
It was covered by all the media outlets.
3 roadside explosions triggered at the same time last night as a coach left its hotel in the south of Dortmund.
Public figures commented on it.
We should not let them affect our life, whoever it was.
The media echo went far beyond Dortmund.
I think it was front page news in every single big paper around Europe. Everyone thought of like a terrorist attack, and people were scared that throughout the city in Dortmund there was more attacks to be happening.
Unbeknownst to investigators, just after the bomb went off and the players of the team were shell-shocked, the person who had masterminded the attack was actually sitting in the hotel eating steak and sweet potatoes. My name is Thomas Rogers. I'm the journalist who wrote the article, The Get-Rich-Quick Scheme That Nearly Killed a German Soccer Team. Dortmund is a mid-sized city in the western part of Germany in a state called North Rhine-Westphalia. And it's a former industrial city that's kind of fallen on hard times in the last few decades. It was severely bombed in the war, so the center of the city is quite stark. Some of the few high points include its soccer team.
My name is Ike Henning. I'm a reporter with Bloomberg News, and I'm a great fan of Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund fans are super loyal. On all match days, the entire city is in black and yellow. It's like a religion.
I think more than most German cities, soccer does play a very large role in the identity of Dortmund. In October of 2000, the BVB became the first team in the Bundesliga to actually go public. Salaries for soccer players in the Bundesliga have gone up very dramatically. With such high prices, they thought that by going public, they would be able to compete better with big teams like Bayern Munich.
Unfortunately, that didn't go too well. Dortmund bought too many expensive players, high wages, and the club almost went bust in 2005.
The price of their shares, it has sometimes gone up, but mostly gone down since they made that decision. So on April 11th, 2017, the team was staying in a hotel on the outskirts of Dortmund.
Match days are always special in Dortmund. Everyone is looking forward to it. The team always meets in the same hotel ahead of matches.
They stayed in this hotel in order to have a kind of neutral space before games so that they could concentrate, be sort of isolated from distractions, things like that.
Everyone was pretty optimistic they had a chance to go really far, maybe into the finals. I was in the office and getting ready for match day. I was going to meet with a friend, a fellow Dortmund supporter, in a pub. As always, the fans are very excited about matches.
On that day, they were heading to play in the quarterfinal against AS Monaco at Signal Iduna Stadium, which is in the center of Dortmund. Shortly before 7 p.m., the players of the team boarded their official team bus.
When the bus took off the parking lot of the hotel and turned on the street, there were three detonations, 3 bombs that exploded and hit the bus of Dortmund.
3 explosions occurred close to the Borussia Dortmund team bus. The B team bus had just left the hotel. The explosions destroyed 2 windows in the rear.
Okay, we're back. Oh, gold forming that centre, as we said.
Yep.
Look at that, perfect. Drew it out perfection. So again, if you want to be looking to take sales, we will wait. You know, some people are going now. You wait till it's going to hit this resistance zone, our blue zone again. So
our breakout zone is also reformed, so you could look to take a sell from the top there as well.
Yeah, this is all a good resistance zone. And of course, this is all to do with that. Again, the news was, you can see, not as expected, worse by 1. So the reverse was the buy on gold, and if you took the buy here and held, your stop loss would be here. You'd just be in profit now, you see. So again, it's all laid out for you, and the same as if you're taking a sell here, your stop loss would be above, just said, the breakout zone. So that's a good thing about the Axe system. It gives you those get out of jail. You know exactly where you need to be, where levels are before you end a trade. This is going to see just hit our base, our flat part of our baseline there. This is ideally where I want it to get to, and this is where, see, it went flat there and flat here, both on 60, the 65 area again. Seems to be a favourite area today. But we know what pattern we're looking for. This is the good thing. We're just waiting. Days. Been more waiting than we thought it would be, but that's what you get. You can't predict anything. We know what we're looking for. We've got the setups. We're just waiting, and I want to try and get 1, 2, 3. I want to try 4 or 5 sells. Hopefully, could be after we end the stream. We've got about 10 minutes to go before we end the stream for today. But I say we're 5% up. 11 trades, all winners, and we're 363. That's pretty good. So we're up to $80 on our trading account from a $30 start a couple of weeks ago, and we're just doing it steady. And I would try to do that 5 to 10%, but it's not always. You can't force it if the setups aren't there. If the sells come off that we want, then we'll get that. You can't grab it all in 5 minutes. Sometimes we can. We know we can grab it in 30 seconds. But we go with the hands we've been dealt. See, it's weakening up. You see, had a breakout and weaken, and you can see RSI is back down to 68. And look at the averages also. We did have hidden bearish divergence form right here. Look, and then your 5 candles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and look what happened. Oh, buy. For those of you a fan of divergence trading, this is also a very accurate indicator when it pops on.
On April 21st, the police arrested them.
Let's see if RSI breaks that 65, and then we could be looking at touching the neutral. I mean, it's been, look at that, it doesn't touch the neutral zone since just before we came on air, so 2 hours ago.
Yep.
This is a good pattern. This is a great pattern. Got everything in our favour. We just didn't go the way on our open.
stayed in the same hotel as the president the night before the bombing. He specifically requested an upper room overlooking the bushes where the explosive devices were hidden.
The media
Down a bit now, look.
Why he would do that, what was his past.
He had been inspired by the 2015 terror attack in Paris, and he noticed that in the aftermath of the attack, the stocks of
RSI 64 now. This is more like it.
if an attack took place that was directed at a specific company, that the decrease in stock price for that company would be even more dramatic.
It never occurred to anyone that someone would do that out of greed.
We now know that the suspect bought 3 different derivatives on the Borussia Dortmund shares. With all these derivatives, he bet on falling shares. The suspect bought the majority of these financial products on the 11th of April, the day of the attack.
If the
RSI 65. Loving that zone.
had reached a value of zero, Wiener Gold
Mhm.
would have made up to 570,000 euros, or the equivalent of about $608,000. Ultimately, the plan completely backfired.
The attacker, Sergei Venegold, didn't make any money. In fact, he lost money.
In court, he would be extremely quiet. He usually kept his hands clasped
Down.
together.
Like I say, I'm going to trade the oil and gas in about 6 minutes. I'll swap to account.
Wiener Gold had served some time.
Can't trade oil and gas with
From that information and from online research, he was able to figure out how
small account.
assemble remote detonated bombs that would do what he hoped to do. There were a few days of extremely emotional testimony, including the soccer player who described doubting whether or not they could ever play the game again.
It brought everything back up and didn't quite help them to kind of process what was going on.
Throughout it all, he sat there completely silent. The big mystery that was swirling around the trial was the question of why
RSI 60. Now it's at the flat RSI line. Look, it's going to break and enter to our neutral, forcing down. You can see it's pushing down now. This little second.
opportunity to leave that troubled home. Wiener Gold is a Russian immigrant to Germany. He speaks with an accent. He has anxiety in large groups of Germans. She begins
Was now
to
1.858.
He has these fears and feels a little bit trapped. Rebecca attempts to dump him on multiple occasions, and he threatens to commit suicide if she...
5 minutes till the news.
Wiener Gold apparently told Rebecca that she would soon be seeing a surprise. After being dumped via text message, he apparently began planning for the attack in earnest.
Get
Wiener Gold was
XNG on the screen. USD.
a maximum sentence in Germany of life in prison. He claimed that he had nothing to do with the attack, but as time went on, he admitted that he had actually been the person who had built
XTI.
but he claimed that he didn't want to actually kill anybody.
As we watch this on here, it's going to
Receive the harshest possible sentence. He was given 14 years in prison, but it's still
Yes.
a considerable amount in jail in Germany.
look, we're looking at a $94 a barrel. So the oil change news is going to be very interesting. Gas in 2 minutes. W, nice M, nice W look formed on gas.
The threat of an asteroid hitting Earth
Again, it's good news. It's going to push gas past our zone. 10 pips. 5 to 10 pips I look for on gas. See, achievable. And 10, 50 to 10 again on oil as well. Exactly the same. 10, 115.
Most of it is
Wait and see what the result is. 2 minutes to go. Keep an eye on gold, obviously.
Finally hitting the neutral zone.
Yes, here we go. Retesting. Well, we're going to get some red. Are we going to get some red finally? I'm going to take a screenshot of this so I can put it on Instagram. A chart on.
There are a lot of asteroids in our solar system. They number in the billions.
Scientists all over the world are working toward detecting and deflecting the most catastrophic of natural disasters.
The race is on to find as many of these objects.
We have a way of calculating whether or not an asteroid is potentially dangerous or not.
I mean, I think it's something worth investing in. It's our existence at stake, right?
Amy, let's get this one out of the way. It's probably the question you get asked the most, but how scared should we be?
Asteroids and elements.
Excuse me.
They're like a lot of other natural hazards. These are very, very infrequent.
RSI 55 just hit that neutral and bounced out. We got scared of it. 56. Is it still going to enter? We've got the momentum to the downside. Could have. 30 seconds to go. EIA, crude oil stocks change news, and the gasoline stocks change.
The object that wiped out the dinosaurs was somewhere.
Remember, don't look in the corner because it's wrong.
Every time.
It's great. I still don't understand that. The result's right. It's just they're giving you the wrong colour. If you're colourblind, it's an advantage.
Yeah.
Right, let's see if I can get anything on this or not.
Nope.
By the 1980s,
Worse than expected on both of them. Look at that.
in 1994, stargazers watched as comet Shoemaker-Levy,
Which is quite good because they're both kind of sat on those kind of neutral zones.
and the event became a
See.
turning point in the search for asteroids and comets
Post
in
them
our
to the
solar
group so
system.
people follow.
In 1998, Congress tasked NASA with finding 90% of asteroids
Buy.
and comets 1 kilometer wide or
And oil, same. Ah, there was the drop on oil. Look, there we are. It was there.
Armageddon and Deep Impact brought
Already in profit
and fear
on oil. Buy. They can be slow burners. Worse than expected.
Can you give us a sense of how many are out there in our solar system?
We know that there are a lot of asteroids in our solar system. They number in the billions. Most of them, however, are between Mars and Jupiter in what we call the main asteroid belt. This is a region of space where most of the asteroids in the inner part of our solar system live, and they stay there for many billions of years. There is another population, though, that kind of leaks in and gets into the region.
See, any pullbacks on that? Yes. Nice spike, look. Beautiful. Spike. Just post those. Let those fly.
When we first spot an object, we really know very little about it. We just see something moving across the sky. So all you get is just sort of a handful of snapshots, just enough to this isn't an asteroid that we've already seen before. And then once we can calculate the distance to it, we can now start to make predictions about its true size. Is it large or is it
Spread on gas, you always. Not so much on oil.
we have to get pretty quickly to really understand what's going on.
Finding asteroids is just one piece of the puzzle. Planetary scientists are extremely skilled in determining the orbits and speeds of asteroids based on relatively small amounts of data. NASA runs simulations of the trajectories asteroids could take,
Bit
which is useful
gold.
but time-consuming.
Still rejecting out that neutral zone.
A team of
Yeah.
scientists in the Netherlands
Just gonna switch.
could buy us more time.
Our method is
Yeah.
very quick. You actually get an assessment of whether or not the object is dangerous or not. If you look at the classical way of determining the danger of an asteroid, it may take days of computing time on very big machines to determine this hazardousness.
The current problem is that there's just too many asteroids out there to spend a huge amount of computational power on all of them. So
Now push it back down again. It's going to up, down. Well, you can see the power because running out, because look at the size of the candles. They're small. This was the last big move, and then you've got a dozen candles or so.
By training the network in this way, you train.
But we can still pull up and still retest this zone.
And once it's trained,
Looking for, and we've got a cross on the trend line. So again, you're not going to be taking a buy unless it breaks this both these trend lines and breaks our breakout zone. Ideally, you can micro scalp, but really we know we're running out of steam and we're looking for the reverse now.
But it only means that they look very similar to the ones.
See if we can get a couple of cheeky sells before we end today's stream. We're going 2 hours. Time flies when you're having fun. And like I say, we're over $80. It's really good. We're over 5% for the day. Gonna hold a couple of sales.
Oh, we're flashing neutral again.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now we're not.
Now we're not. Let's see if it builds up enough momentum.
Neutral, 55.
Simulate kind of going forward in time an asteroid that's going to hit Earth because, well, the Earth is really small and space is really big, and then you have to have very exact parameters to shoot an asteroid that goes and hits exactly Earth, and then see what NAHB ingenious.
5 pips would do. 5. That is down to the apex of the M here, back down here a little bit.
It's very hard to make it hit.
Price is 1861. 1860.23 could be a possibility.
If it builds up enough momentum to break that our baseline and that little extra zone in between, I can see us going down to neutral support.
There it is.
I'm looking at 1858.5.
Brilliant. I just grabbed 72 and 66, so I got $1.60 on that. There you go. And my TP was exactly just above the points of interest. It smashed it. So we're $5.51. Yay!
$9.04 for the day. So I got a $2.92, $1.90, 9%.
Excellent. Mine.
I still got a couple swinging. I got an 1860.93 entry that I'm gonna 1858.5. And I got a couple other ones that looks like I may be able to hold for a while.
Yep. See if this push down's a bit more. That's good.
It is. We're red. We're red.
Here we go. RSI's 44. We're truly dropping at last. Are we going to get a retest of our 25 zone?
What we can do about a potentially hazardous object depends a great deal on what we know.
Better. So we're $82 on our account and we're 5 for the day, so that's pretty good. Well happy with that. Like I say, we're 7%.
Nice little drop right there. It took me 3.5% on the account for the day. Or up 3.5%. Let's say. Ooh, getting a little rejection right there. Look at that.
Yep. Because it's coming to our neutral support approaching. And the trend line formed it nicely like that. Is there enough to wade through all this and break through back to 1856?
That's a lot of traffic.
But it's not been read. It's not been read for such a long time.
Yep. Since like 8 a.m.
Yep.
They range from painting one side of the object a white color and painting the other side dark and then letting the pressure of light sort of perturb its orbit.
In a departure from the lab and computer simulations, NASA has real plans to rehearse kinetic impact deflection. In 2021, the agency will launch DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test mission, which will intercept a 160-meter asteroid in 2022. Better to practice now before we have to deal with an actual threat.
Oil, sorry, there you go. Did it? Rejected. So there was your oil news. About $50 on that. $50-$60 on that one. Gas hasn't dropped yet. Waiting, this is the big one. This could be a couple of $100 if this drops. See, it did a W and an M. Might bounce but drop, so I want to be holding that. Gold, yes, rejected off it. Firms, support 47. But even if RSI comes up and goes green, we know now the bias is towards being pushed back down again. It'll just be a little retest then back down. So yeah, we just got in on that red, got some money, got out.
This particular natural disaster, like a lot of natural disasters and like climate change, is a problem of the global commons. So the thing that we risk collectively is that it sort of then becomes nobody's problem, and nobody takes ownership over it. The asteroids are all over the sky. They just truly cross boundaries and borders with a second's notice.
I kind of imagine in the future maybe lots of small satellites around the Earth that are always going outward. I mean, I think it's something worth investing in. It's our existence at stake, right?
We can set some levels. It's going to reject. Might come back down again.
The pandemic has affected everyone in different ways. Some pass the time by baking.
Homemade sourdough bread. Do I need to say more?
Some chose to binge watch Netflix.
It's your game.
Or maybe you started a garden oasis in your backyard. But for millions of others, they wanted to uproot the financial industry.
Let's just lock it on up and take $15,000. Here's a stock that changes your life. I see a stock going up and I buy it, and I just watch it until it stops going up, and then I sell it. I have gained over $3 million. I want some free money.
I don't think you can overstate the online community, social media, influence in financial markets.
A large group of inexperienced investors who discuss their plans on social media platform Reddit have
Right. Well, I'll say, while that's playing around, it's reversing back up, we'll drop back down again. We will. So that's the end of the news until the Fed will be back in 3.5 hours time to have a scalp with the FMOC minutes news again. We might try it with our small account. We'll be in the group, we'll be on YouTube, so if anyone wants to join our group, get access to this system and our mentorship, then go to www.mohawkforex.com. And all the information is there on how to join us. Well, thanks for joining us today. I say we've done about 13 trades, all winners so far. We're looking to take more sales on gold when we finally get a drop, so it's just a case of waiting as we see it bouncing on our trend line now, and we're looking for this.
One thing that people don't realize, trading is 10% guessing, 10% trading, and 80% waiting.
So true. So true.
Absolutely great stream today.
Yeah,
thank you everyone for tuning in.
Yep, thanks to Alex for joining us as well. Thanks to Justin as
Yes,
always. And
always, brother.
I'm going to go and grab some food and then watch the charts, and we'll be back later on. So
welcome back, brother. We are glad you're back.
Yes, it's good to be back, and we'll do a few more live streams hopefully this week as well. So keep an eye on the news, everybody. Trade safe, and hope to hear from you all soon. But until the next live stream, take care, and we'll see you on the other side. See you later.
Trade safe. Cheers.
Bye.